This week, we are talking about how to get your clients to take action. And essentially, there are three things that I want to communicate to everybody today in relation to getting your clients to take action. There are three things that I would love to express because there are three ways. Let me rephrase that. There are not three ways of getting your client to take action. There are actually many ways of getting them to take action. But there are three things that I have found have always been very, very useful to focus on when it comes to having a client that just relentlessly seems to not take action, right? Now, as a coach, you will experience this. What do we do when we have a client that is relentlessly not taking action? The first thing I want to focus on is examining the client's mood, okay? Their emotional state. This gets overlooked way too many times in the very, very logistical, very black and white, very action-based form of coaching. We can say, right, my client needs to take action. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create them an action plan. I'm going to figure out a schedule. I'm going to figure out a timetable, and then they will have no choice but to take action because I've made taking action so easy for them that naturally they will indeed take action. And it doesn't work that way because we're human beings. And what drives us as human beings is our emotional state, okay? Our mood that we find ourselves in on a daily basis. That's what drives us because the emotion and meaning our minds attached to events ultimately count more than the experience themselves, right? So let me just explain that. When we have an experience, okay, we are all too often convinced that it is the experience itself that makes us feel a certain way, makes us take a lack of action, right? That could be our circumstances, the people around us, the place in which we find ourselves, the event in which we're experiencing, the time of day in which we're trying to take action. There's all of these outside forces that are contributing towards why our client may not take action. But ultimately, there's only one real thing that can determine whether or not they will or will not take action. And that is indeed their mood. Because like I said, the emotion and meaning that our mind attaches to events ultimately counts more than the experience of the event itself, okay? Now, since they condition our willingness to experience and pursue events, we must pay very, very, very close attention to the mood of our client, okay? That is absolutely key. We must pay close attention to their emotion and the meaning on which they are putting upon events. So, in short, what we need to do is we need to get our client into an appropriate emotional state before we ever expect them to take any action. And we want them to remove themselves from creating all of these excuses and reasons as to why they're not able to take action. Because if we live inside of the excuses and we live inside of the reasons and we live inside of the experiences that we have, then what we will do is we will find very, very good reasons as to why we shouldn't take action. We will explain how the time isn't right. We will explain how the people around us don't support us. We will explain how the place in which we live doesn't support action taking. We will explain how the events in which we've experienced and continue to experience create barriers and blockages that stop us from taking action. How often do you hear that kind of stuff from your client? The time isn't right. The place isn't right. The people aren't right. The events I'm experiencing are not right. All of these outside forces, all of these outside logistical forces are creating a sense that I cannot take action in this immediate moment. So what we want to do to be able to overcome that is we want to be able to positively affect their mood. We need to positively affect their emotional state. And the reason for that is because when we find ourselves in a useful, positive, constructive emotional state, i.e., a good mood, we are way more likely to take action. It's as simple as that. Everything that I've just said up until this point contributes towards that. When we find ourselves in a good mood, and don't forget the word good is very subjective, it's very vague, but we're going to dive into that more in a moment. When we find ourselves in a good mood, we are way more likely to take action than if we find ourselves in a bad mood, right? Now that's a very simple explanation. It's a very simple example. When you find yourself in a good mood, it's a lot easier to take action than when you find yourself in a bad mood. Is that or is that not correct? Is that or is that not accurate? And when I say good mood, I'm talking about a positive emotional state. Maybe the emotional state that you find yourself in is one of relaxation, one of excitement, one of confidence, one of focus, one of energized. These are positive emotional states that can be considered good moods, right? When you find yourself in a good mood, it means that you could be feeling energized, focused, relaxed, confident, right? And when you're experiencing that stuff, is it or is it not easier to take action when you're in that state? Why is this important? This is important because the more inexperienced coach will think, my client isn't taking action, that must mean that the action plan is not clear enough, right? That must mean that the motivation is not clear enough, that the focus is not clear enough. I need more explanation. I need more direction. I need more clarity. Now, clarity, explanation, direction, these are all gifts that we can indeed help our clients achieve. However, if our client is in a detrimental, negative emotional state, i.e., they're in a bad mood, it doesn't matter if you're the fucking best coach on earth, you're not going to be getting that person to take action. So when you have a client that isn't taking action, the first place you want to put your focus is on their emotional state. You want to remove your focus away from action planning. Focus, clarity, detail. We need more of this pen and paper. What are you going to do? And we need to firmly plant our focus on their mood, right? Now, how you change your client's emotional state, how you change their mood, as we know in the world of coaching and NLP specifically, there are many different ways of doing that, right? But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a very quick fix for this, right? Now, this quick fix, this is almost like, let me give you an example of this. It is a temporary fix and it is a temporary boost. And it isn't the kind of fix that is going to be long lasting and it's not going to be sustainable forever. However, it will give your client enough of an emotional shift to start taking some action. And then we can move on to the other steps after that, right? Now, your face is beautiful, right? That's a given. That's a given. Your face is beautiful. I'm talking to everybody that's watching this. But it's also a very powerful system. Your face is an entire system. Okay? Now, what do I mean by system? What I want you to picture here is I want you to picture yourself in, I don't know whether this would be an office. I don't know whether this would be, I tell you, it's really weird, right? Some of the metaphors in my head. I picture this almost like a power plant, right? Has anybody ever seen The Simpsons? And you know Homer, he works in that nuclear power plant. And when he sits at his desk is this like huge sort of metal platform and it's got all of these buttons on it and it's got all of these levers and all of these triggers, right? I want you to picture something like that. It's almost like a gigantic dashboard of buttons and levers and triggers and switches, and every single one of them does something different, right? They all have an effect. Your face is very much like that. Your face is this dashboard. It's this trigger board. It's a switchboard that is responsible for immediate emotion. And the reason for that is because there are so many nerve endings in your face, right? There's so much feeling within your face that your face sends biofeedback triggers to your brain depending on what your face is doing, right? So let me give you a very, very simple example of this. Smiling when you don't feel like smiling. That is the sort of thing that you hear and you think, oh, fuck off. I don't want to hear it. I'm not in the mood. Something really bad is happening at work. I'm not enjoying my home life. I'm feeling very unfulfilled. The last thing I want to do is smile. Now, hear that kind of language. That sort of language is coming from someone who it's going to be very difficult for them to take action towards an action plan because they're experiencing low mood, right? They're experiencing a negative emotional state. Now, we can go on a very long journey of helping them overcome that negative emotional state with various different coaching techniques, various different NLP techniques, but we don't have time for that within this one session. So the quick tip that I'm going to give you is getting them to change the expression on their face. As simple as that. Getting them to think, what emotional state do I want to be in? What emotional state would be the most useful for me right now? Then understanding, what does my face do when I find myself in that emotional state? Copy that facial expression to get a quick burst of that emotional state. And all you need is enough of a burst to take the first step towards taking action. So let me give you an example of this, right? Let's imagine for a moment you've got a client. They're not taking action. And we realize they're not taking action because they're in a bad mood, right? They're in a mood of depression, anxiety, feeling unfulfilled, feeling closed in. They don't feel like fucking smiling, right? They don't feel like adopting the facial expression of excitement, exhilaration, happiness, fulfillment. However, we're going to make them do it. Essentially, as their coach, we're going to make them do it. So we ask them, okay, you find yourself in this negative emotional state and it's stopping you from taking action. What emotional state do you feel like you need to be in order to take the action required to move closer towards your goal? Let's say, for instance, your client says, I need to be in a state of excitement because I'm not excited at the moment at the prospect of this goal or this desire or this work I need to do. In fact, I'm not excited at all in general. But if I was excited, I know I would take the action required to achieve this goal. Then here comes the theatrical bit, the bit where we feel like all of a sudden we're directing this person like a movie director or a theatre director directing an actor. And we ask them, what does your face tend to do when you're excited? And at first it's a fucking weird question. They're like, well, what do you mean? And we're like, well, think back at a time in your life where you were very excited, the most excited you've ever been. And already what you'll see is by asking them that question, they will slowly start to show you some of the expressions because they're reliving a memory, but not in its fullest extent. And they'll say, well, it's hard to explain. And then you say, show me, because this is the only way. Now I'm gonna show you mine. All right, you show me yours, I'll show you mine, whatever the fuck that means. I'm going to show you mine. So my facial expression when I'm excited does this. It goes like, I have to bite my bottom lip and I get like really fucking like, I can feel the tension here. But when I get that sense of excitement, now I'm not like particularly excited today. Like today's not like an overly exciting day for me. It's not like I'm going anywhere that's going to like fill me with excitement. I'm not really particularly looking forward to anything towards the end of the day or tomorrow or even the weekend. But I feel immediately excited. Like immediately excited when I adopt the facial expression. It starts in my face and it runs through my whole body. I can feel the emotional state of excitement because I've made the decision to adopt the facial expression of excitement. This works with every emotion. If you adopt the facial expression of sadness, you'll start to feel sad. If you adopt the facial expression of anxiousness, you'll feel anxious. If you adopt the facial expression of confidence, excitement, exhilaration, love, openness, forgiveness, don't underestimate what a complicated switchboard this is, right? This has got triggers, switches, levers that create a sense of emotion. So we never want to underestimate it. Once your client has made the decision what emotional state they need to be in order to take action, then we get them to adopt the facial expression of the emotional state, get them to feel the emotional state, and then immediately get them to take action. If we ask them or convince them or try to get them to take action without the appropriate emotional state attached, it's going to be just a complete fucking, it's not going to work, right? It's going to be a futile exercise, right? Completely futile. It's not going to go anywhere if we try to convince them to take action and the emotional state isn't there. So anyway, that's the first one. Then what we want to do is we want to move into the realm of beliefs. Okay, so we've got your client to the point where they are experiencing somewhat of the emotional state they need. It's like a shot. It's not fully getting them to embrace that emotional state that's going to last long. It's a shot of that emotional state. Changing your facial expression in the moment gives your client a shot of the emotional state that they need in that moment, enough to take action. What will allow them to take more continuous action is examining their beliefs, right? Now, beliefs are clearly a very, very, very important part of this entire process, because beliefs, they come in various different levels, right? So our beliefs, they have these various different levels of emotional intensity, and they all possess the power to create change and to take action, right? That's really important to understand that. We use the term belief a lot when we talk about coaching, and we're trying to get people to elevate their status, elevate their business, elevate their life. We must always be focusing on what is it you believe. And a lot of the time, naturally, of course, we break beliefs down into one of two different types, right? We talk about empowering beliefs that drive us forward and push us towards our goals. And we talk about limiting beliefs, beliefs that hold us back and stop us from taking action. And they tend to fall into one of those two camps, right? It's either an empowering belief or it's a limiting belief. But what I want to do today is I actually want to introduce you to the idea that beliefs can actually be split into three more. Now, these three different types of belief that I'm going to talk to you about, they are also either empowering or limiting. But let me just explain it so it makes a little bit more sense. There are three different versions of beliefs. And those three different types of beliefs are known as opinions, beliefs, and convictions. Okay, this is very, 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 very important when it comes to getting our clients to take action. Opinions, beliefs, and convictions. And those three things go up in power. They go up in effectiveness. Opinions are the weakest, beliefs are in the middle, and convictions are at the very top. So what do I mean by this? Now, opinions are something that we feel relatively certain about, right? Relatively certain. But the certainty is only temporary and it can be changed very easily, right? So I'll give you an example. You might think that the head of your company's accounting department, right, just as a random example, is not qualified for the position. You might think, you know, that person who heads up the accounting department, my opinion is that they're not qualified for the position. But your opinion, it may change, and it may change very quickly, because you might then see that that person is actually very, very effective at managing a team, right? So you have one opinion, and that opinion is not based on heavy fact. It's not based on heavy amounts of experience. It's just an opinion that's been formed. And that opinion is flimsy. It's weak, right? It can be changed at any moment. Hence why it's known as an opinion, okay? Now, what's really, really interesting about this is that people seem to really cling on to their opinions, almost like to the point where it's like, well, because I'm entitled to one, it must be absolutely fucking true, right? Which, of course, is just not the case, because people's opinions change all the time. So when people go real hell to leather, like arguing for the right of their own opinion and arguing for the fact that they've got one, what a lot of people are overlooking is the fact that it could actually change at any moment, right? Because it's only an opinion, and opinions can change. However, what happens is the opinions that we hold can evolve into a belief. Okay, so they go one stage higher. Now, this is going to be very useful when it comes to helping your clients take action. So bear with me, okay? Bear with me. But it's good information to know anyway. So opinions can evolve into beliefs. They can get stronger. Now, a belief, on the other hand, aside from an opinion, is formed when you develop a much larger base of reference, right? One that's often associated with strong emotions based on an experience. That's the biggest difference between an opinion and a belief. An opinion gets stronger and becomes a belief once we have had a strong emotion based upon an experience, right? So beliefs can create such a level of certainty that they close people off to new ideas. That's one of the effects of having a belief. Remember what I said when it comes to an opinion, we don't have a very, very strong sense of certainty, right? That certainty is weak, it's wavering, it can change. When it comes to having beliefs, we have a much stronger sense of certainty because of having a strong emotion that we feel based on an experience. That level of certainty creates this idea that we don't want any new ideas, right? We've got our belief, we don't want it to be changed. So I'll give you an example. Some people believe that money equals success, right? It's a belief that some people have. And other people believe that money is the root of all evil. Now, why would two individual people have two varying beliefs on the same thing, right? Money is money. Doesn't mean anything. It only means what we decide it to mean, much like everything else in this world. But so we have to ask ourselves, how can two people not only have a difference in opinion on what money means, but they actually have various different levels of belief, right? There's a severity to this. They actually believe two different things about money. Now, the only reason as to why two people will have two different beliefs is because they've had two different experiences. That's it. They've had two different experiences that have created two different types of emotional reaction. That's what's happened. So that's when an opinion evolves into a belief, right? Not because we just have an opinion on something because we've heard about it or we've seen it, or maybe we've heard someone else talking about a certain thing and we've developed an opinion. We now have had an experience that has created an emotional reaction strong enough to develop a belief, right? So beliefs are stronger than opinions. I think we've gathered that. However, there is a third level, all right? There is a third level. And that third level, which often isn't spoken about, but actually in the realm of coaching is the strongest level, the level in which we would like to try to get our clients to, is the level of conviction. Right? Now, conviction eclipses a belief, right? Primarily because of the emotional intensity a person links to the idea. Now, a person holding a conviction feels so certain that he or she will be completely 100% resistant to any new input, right? Often to the point of obsession. This is what happens when people have a complete and utter conviction towards one thing. They are utterly convinced that this is the way that it needs to happen. This is the only way, and no one is ever going to be able to change my mind. Now, one of the best things you can do to create mastery in any area of your life, and one of the most powerful things that you can do to help your clients take action upon the difficult things in their life, is create conviction, right? Raise their belief level to such a high place, to such a high level of intensity that they have created a conviction. Convictions are at the very core of what motivate us in life. If we want to be motivated towards taking action, especially when the action is difficult to take, especially when huge changes, huge dramatic positive changes live on the other side of that action, we must have conviction if we truly want to take the action that is required in order to achieve that goal, right? So what must we do with our clients? Not only elevate their mood, like we spoke about in the beginning, not only elevate their emotional state to a place where they're able to take action, we must turn our clients' beliefs into convictions if we want them to take action forever upon this goal. If we want to know that they're going to be able to take action, even when we're not present, even when we're no longer there to help them move forward and progress and grow. We must get them to the stage where their beliefs have been developed into pure and utter conviction. Have you ever found yourself so heavily convicted about something that one conviction that you have, it's such an intense feeling of belief, right? And this belief comes with such intense emotions based on your past experiences, what you've seen, what you've heard, where you've been, that you have had such a strong conviction of something that one conviction has driven you to take action, right? And you no longer ever needed to worry about, where am I going to get the energy? Where am I going to get the time? Where am I going to get the focus? None of that stuff has been a problem because you've got such a strong level of conviction. You've got such a strong belief that something either does or doesn't need to happen, or something is or isn't right. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't give you any real examples because everything is completely unique to you. But has anyone watching this live ever felt such a strong, intense, emotional belief in something that you have got conviction, that you're convicted of it's the fact that it is correct or that it's not correct, that it's right or that it's wrong, or that it should or shouldn't happen? And that has driven you to take action. You feel it. You feel it when you've moved away from, okay, this is my opinion, right? This is what I think, to this is what I believe to be true, but I'm kind of still open to some input and some interpretation from elsewhere, to no fucking way, I am 100% convicted that this is the answer, right? That is like, it's an unbelievable, palpable feeling that you have when you make that transition. So conviction is key when it comes to taking action that's difficult to take. So how do we create conviction? I'm going to leave you with this little step-by-step technique, right? I've already given you a little quick tip technique of how to get your client into the appropriate emotional state. And that's by using this trigger board that they've got. And now what you need, now that you've got them into the appropriate emotional state, I need you to get them to the point where we turn their beliefs into conviction. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to find some evidence, right, that will allow your client to develop an empowering opinion. So let me say that again. To start this journey off, right, we first need to understand, right, what does your client need to believe in order to take action? That's what we need to establish. When you've got a client sitting in front of you that just relentlessly is not taking any action, not only do we raise their emotional state, but we need to firmly understand, what does this client need to believe in order for them to take action? We need to understand what is the belief that they must have in order to take action. Now, we can't give that to them. We can't tell them what they need to believe. We can't convince them what they need to believe. You know what? We don't even know what they need to believe. We don't even know. They have to tell us. That's the key. They must tell us. And at first, it might be difficult to get to that place, but what do? As coaches, we have the power tool. We ask, we explore, we're inquisitive. We want to know. Tell me, what do you need to believe in order to take action? And they say, I don't know. A very, very good question is, I know you don't know, but what if you did know? And that might be a bit of a mindfuck. You're like, what do you mean? I don't know. I know you don't know, but let's pretend that you did know. And if we pretend that you did know, what would be the answer? What would you come up with? Also, another one, don't overthink it. Let your subconscious give you the answer. What's the first thing that popped into your head? What's the first thing you felt? What's the first memory that popped into your head? What's the first thought? What's the first feeling? Let their intuition answer the question. Anyway, there's loads of different ways that we can get them to give us the answer. We want to get them to the point where they say, right, what I need to believe is I need to believe this, right? I need to believe that I'm confident. I need to believe that I'm worthy. I need to believe that the people are going to listen to me. I need to believe that I can create something as great as this. Whatever, right? Whatever. At the moment, the reason why they're not taking action is because they don't believe. There's something that they don't believe, that they need to believe in order to take the action, right? And we need to find out what that thing is. Once we find out what it is they need to believe, right? Let's just use a totally random example because it always makes it easier to understand. Let's imagine for a moment you're working with a client and they want to stop smoking, right? Let's use that as an example. They want you to help them stop smoking. Now, and we find out that what they need to believe is they need to believe that smoking will kill them within the next 5 years if they don't stop. And at the moment, they don't believe that. And because they don't believe that, they're not able to take the action required to stop smoking because it's not what they believe. They find themselves in the wrong emotional state, which we fix with step number 1, the trigger board. And also, they just don't believe that to be true. So the very, very first step of this process is we want them to look for evidence that will allow them to develop an opinion that will help them. Not a belief at this stage, not a very, very strong belief, just an opinion, okay? So what you want them to do is you want them to go out there and literally look for evidence that will show them that actually it is very, very possible that they could die within the next 5 years if they carry on smoking the amount they smoke, right? And what we need them to develop is we need to start to get them to develop just an opinion at this stage, right? That can be changed, it can be flimsy, but this is an opinion that they've not yet had up until this point because they've not gathered the evidence, right? They've not seen the examples. So whatever you're coaching someone through, you must get them to first go on a mission to find the evidence, to develop an opinion. Using this example, this person has an opinion that I feel as though that now maybe actually, based on what I've seen, based on what I've read, maybe it is true that this could kill me within the next 5 years because I've seen the evidence for it, right? Step number 2, once your client has started to develop the opinion that that could be true, what you want to get them to do is you want to get them to live as if it is true. This is how we start to develop beliefs inside of somebody. So what do I mean by that? We literally want to get them to pretend at this stage, but that's fine because we must build up experiences some way, somehow. And we say to them, right, let's imagine that this new opinion that you've got, that smoking may kill you, right, in the next 5 years if you carry on. What I want you to do is I want you to live as if that is absolutely true. I'm not asking you to believe it. This is what you say to your client. I'm not asking you to believe it because that would be too much of a big ask. All I'm asking you to do is live as if it is true. Now, if it were true, what would you think? What would you feel? And what your client will start to say is they'll say, well, if that was true, I would be really fucking scared. If that was true, I would think that I'm like really damaging myself and my body. I would start to think about how I'm not able to spend any time with my kids. I won't be able to see them grow up. I won't be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. I'll never be able to go to this country or achieve this goal. Or if it was true, these are the things I would think. These are the things I would feel. And what you do is you get them to go on a journey of living their life as if it's true, right? Now, what happens is when we do that, when we live life as if something is true, eventually we develop a belief. And what we do is we start to believe its existence. And we start to believe that maybe it is actually true, right? And then we get to the point where we believe that it is true because we've thought about it enough and we've experienced it enough and we've embodied it enough that it's become a belief. This is where beliefs come from. Beliefs come from personal experience. They come from the emotions that we feel via experiencing something. If we experience something enough times, we feel it enough times, it becomes a belief of ours. And this is why everybody around the world has such different beliefs, because we all have such different experiences and different emotional states that have been created via those experiences. So what we want your client to do is we want your client to start to develop a belief that is actually going to help them. So again, using that example, if your client really, really wants you to, the action that they want to take is to stop smoking, then of course it's going to be very useful for them to believe that smoking is going to kill them within the next 5 years. That is actually a very useful, empowering belief to have, because that belief will start to contribute towards the action that they need to take. right? So once again, like we're only 2 steps in, yeah? And can you see how this goes way beyond just creating an action plan? Way beyond it. This goes way beyond action plans, scheduling in time, marking it out on your diary. This goes way beyond that. They need to fully embody these new realities if they're going to take action. So anyway, then what we want to do is we have identified the belief they need, right? We've started to develop the belief. But then what we want to do is we want to reinforce their belief. We want to truly reinforce it and make it even stronger by adding personal references, right? Now, to create a conviction around, let's again use this as an example, right? Around this healthy lifestyle, like not smoking. We want to get our clients to research medical consequences of smoking. We want to get them to talk to people who have lost loved ones because of smoking. We want to get them to visit genuinely, guys, I do this with my clients. Like I get them to a point where if we're going to change our belief and we're going to turn it into a conviction, we're going to go all the fucking way on this. You're going to get them to go and visit people on a hospital ward who have got days left on their life because of smoking and listen to the opinions of those people and the viewpoints on what they would have done differently. If we are going to get someone to change their opinion into a belief and their belief into a conviction, they must have very, very strong personal references. They must go to places, speak to people, do things that they never normally would do that make them feel uncomfortable. However, they reinforce the emotion needed to develop a conviction. And then if, say for instance, you've got this client who wants to quit smoking, and again, it's only one example, but let's say you get them to go on that journey, right? That opinion that developed into a belief, that belief is soon going to develop into a conviction if they're sitting there talking to someone who's got days left of their life due to having now, because of smoking their whole lives. That's the sort of shit that is going to create conviction, not just belief, conviction. Because then at any stage, if anybody ever says, oh, well, I don't think so. I think it's probably a safe thing to do. Your client is at a stage where they're like, I've seen it. I've been there. I've witnessed it. I've spoken to that person. There's nothing that you say is going to be able to help get me to change my mind. Because I've got such a strong emotional connection to this now, because I've literally seen it. I've been there. That is the nature of conviction. When we're talking about getting our clients to take action, the gold standard of getting them to take action is creating conviction, right? That is the gold standard. We can take it even one step further and get them to find a triggering event or make their own triggering event. You know, they need to raise their emotional intensity. They need to raise this emotional intensity so much. For instance, if you had them at a point where they were trying to give up smoking and you had them in that intensive care ward and they're speaking to those people who are on a fucking respirator or whatever it's called and they're about to die and they're telling you, don't do it, make sure you give up now. Those things are called triggering events. And we want our clients to experience those triggering events in order to create this level of conviction. So what you do at the very, 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 very end of all of that is you get your client to take immediate action, right? Each action they take strengthens the commitment that they have to taking more action. And it raises the level of emotional connection they have to the conviction even more. So when they're in that place where you've managed to get them to a point where they have moved from belief to conviction, the next thing you want to do immediately is get them to take action. That's the next thing you want them to do. Now, of course, I can only use one example because of time. And we use the whole how to get your client to stop smoking example. You guys, having worked with your clients now for a period of time, you're going to know what it is you're trying to help them with. And you're going to fully understand on a deeper level what sort of beliefs, well, they need to tell you what beliefs they need in order to take this action, but you're going to start to develop a pretty good idea of it. So I can only give you one example because we're limited for time, but you must get them to go through the process of creating conviction off their beliefs. And that can only truly happen if they put themselves in situations and places and speak to people that they wouldn't normally have done to create the conviction, because that conviction comes from an intense emotional experience. That is where conviction comes from, having an intense emotional experience. So when it comes to those triggering events, the key is to get them to speak to people and do things and go to places that will create the intense emotional experience required to develop the conviction. And if you get them to develop conviction, you never, ever have to worry about getting them to find motivation, to find focus, to find the time. Because I shit you not, when we've got a full conviction of something and we are willing to take action to prove the conviction, we don't need to find the time. We don't need to find the focus. We don't need to find the motivation. That stuff comes as a byproduct of conviction. So just to summarize on this episode of the Coaching Masters podcast and Power Hour, there's two major steps we want to take when getting our clients to try to take action when they are relentlessly not taking action. We want to shift them immediately into an emotional state that's going to work for them using the trigger board of facial expressions. And then we want to get them to the point where their opinions are developed into beliefs and their beliefs are developed into convictions, and then immediately get them to take action. If they take action then and there in that moment, then there is the snowball effect and they will continuously take action.